We all need one, a home, somewhere to sleep at night. But with home prices skyrocketing in recent years, your money is here to help. Expert advice for buyers and sellers, why waiting for a low interest rate may not be a good idea, and a massive lawsuit that rocked the real estate world, how the settlement could affect you. It's all coming up. Welcome to Your Money. I'm your host, Gordon Severson. If I had $1 for every time I've heard someone talk about interest rates this year, I'd be a millionaire by now. It makes sense. These rates affect our bank accounts, our credit cards, loans, and mortgages. During the pandemic, we saw historically low interest rates on homes, and now people are freaking out because the rates are back up again. Here's why people are freaking out. Let's say you want to buy a new home at $350,000. You put down a 20% down payment at $70,000. And let's say you bought this home back when interest rates were way down at 3%. Using a typical mortgage calculator you can find online, your monthly payment with some taxes and insurance would be about $1,476. But here's where the numbers get depressing. Fast forward to today, and let's say the interest rate is 7%, which is typical for many buyers right now. Your monthly payments would now be $2,159. That means buyers are now paying $683 more each month for the exact same home. I warned you, these numbers would be depressing. We're going to talk more about interest rates coming up later in the show. Interest rates are just one reason why first-time home buyers are losing buying power in this real estate market, as Colin Mayfield explains.
It really does come down to that interest rate.
Historically high mortgage rates hitting buyers where it hurts in their budgets.
Taking a lot of buying power off the table for somebody like me. I think overall kind of putting me in a position to be in that first-time home that doesn't necessarily offer everything that I want.
Mason Pixley realizes that some of the homes in this market are just not within his budget, and he's not alone. Redfin's report shows that over a year's time, a home buyer on a $3K monthly mortgage budget lost $71,000 in buying power since August of last year, when rates hovered around 5.5%. They could afford a $500K home then. Now it's dropped to $429,000.
When I compare that to something like renting, I have a lot of amenities. It comes with a pool, a gym, maintenance services, a lot of that pressure that it can be taken off the home buyer and home owner. That has been pretty comfortable for me.
Because of that monthly price point, he's comfortable renting cheaper with more amenities.
Right now, it is more affordable to rent than it is to buy in most of the country. There are a few exceptions like Detroit and Philadelphia, Houston. Okay. But in Charlotte, for example, it is cheaper to rent.
The rates are too high, and that's the reality. And we got to figure out ways to get creative with loan packages.
Real estate experts agree that it's an unusual market right now with a combo of monthly mortgage rates that can be high, coupled with rising demand and low inventory.
People are stretching out to 33% of their income and so forth, which is hampering on others things they want to spend money on.
I decided to invest in myself and go after an MBA. I think that was a little bit smarter in the short term and hopefully provides a pretty quick return on investment in 2 years, I say.
With higher home prices and higher interest rates, a lot of first-time home buyers are now looking for fixer-uppers, cheaper homes that need a little love. Realtors say you can find a good deal buying an older home that needs some work, but always get an inspection because with older homes, you're more likely to find problems in the home, which is okay if you know about them ahead of time and you can budget for those projects. But if you buy the house thinking everything is okay and it's not, that could have a devastating effect on your finances. Speaking of home buyers, what all goes into a monthly mortgage payment? Realtors say there's more than just the price of the home and the interest that you're paying to the bank. Chris Radcliffe explains why it's important for home buyers to understand all the costs that come with buying a home.
First thing is first. When you make a monthly house payment, you are paying both principal and interest back to the bank or the entity that lent you the money.
The two main components of a mortgage are principal and interest, and you'll see these referred to as P&I. Principal is the amount that goes toward paying down your outstanding balance, and interest is what the lender charges you for that outstanding balance.
How much you pay back each month or over time has a great deal to do with one major factor getting a lot of attention these days.
The interest rate will have a huge impact on the actual amount you pay for your mortgage, so be sure to shop around when you get a loan and make sure you're not overpaying.
Besides paying principal and interest, you are usually paying two other portions in a monthly mortgage payment.
Property taxes and homeowners insurance oftentimes are lumped together with the principal and interest or P&I portion of a mortgage payment, although some lenders under certain circumstances will let you pay those separately. But be sure to know the pros and cons of putting those together or paying them separately. I've heard people say that owning is better than renting because your mortgage payment is fixed, whereas rent can increase over time. But keep in mind that property insurance and your property taxes will increase over time, sometimes much faster than inflation. So your mortgage payment can go up. So be sure you don't stretch too much to get into that house because you want to leave some wiggle room for increasing taxes and increasing homeowners insurance.
Although it won't be a part of your official mortgage, you might have another bill either monthly or annually.
Condos, townhomes, and similar properties will have a homeowners association fee or HOA fee. This will pay for maintenance for the common areas. Keep in mind that can be a good thing because it's money that goes in and can help you keep up with that maintenance, but it will impact your payment and it will be something you have to pay every month going forward.
And just a reminder that in FHA and even conventional loans, if you put down less than 20%, you're going to be paying private mortgage insurance as well, or PMI. And that is a fee that goes to insure the loan for the bank in case you walk away rather than selling because you have so little equity in the property.
So if you're buying your first home or upgrading to a bigger one, make sure you budget for everything, not just the cost of the home. Banks often say your mortgage payments should not be higher than 28% of your monthly income. And with all those taxes and fees and insurance, the price you're actually paying each month could be higher than you might think. You may have heard about a lawsuit settlement with the National Association of Realtors. After being sued by a group of home sellers, the association agreed to pay $418 million. The settlement also includes several changes that will affect realtors, home buyers, and sellers across the country. Alex Haskell explains why.
We sold the house in Bowdoin in 2023.
Since an early age, Alex Morse has become well acquainted with the home buying and selling process.
This move was my 26th in life.
But that process could soon see a major shakeup in Maine and across the country after the National Association of Realtors settled a lawsuit this month.
And as part of the settlement, they agreed to change the rules on how real estate agents are paid. Those rule changes are going to significantly affect the housing market and the way you and I buy and sell homes moving forward.
Traditionally, most selling agents charge a commission of 5 to 6% of a home sale, splitting it with the buyer's agent. The proposed settlement would change this.
If you're selling a home, your agent is no longer going to be obligated to make an offer of commission to the buyer's agent. And as a result, there's going to be more competition in the market, so commissions are probably going to come down.
As a result, so could the price of homes.
It seems like we might be going backwards a bit.
But President of Maine Association of Realtors, Paul McKee, says this could all cost some people more in the long run.
The buyers will have to come up maybe potentially with more funds than what they anticipated in order to be represented.
Moore says he's always been represented and worries the change could discourage others from doing the same in the future, but also sees the benefits of healthy market competition to bring down high commissions.
It is a lot of money, and there are a lot of people that would be very impactful on their livelihood.
A federal court now has the final say on the settlement. Alex Haskell, News Center, Maine.
There is so much more to explain with this lawsuit and how it could affect you. So I asked one of my experts to stop by the studio to break it all down for us. I'll have that interview coming up and why realtors say waiting for low interest rates may not be a good idea. More on that after the break. There's been a lot of talk in real estate these days, specifically how a recent lawsuit settlement might affect buyers and sellers of homes. There's a lot of information out there, so we thought it'd be a great opportunity, a great chance to have an expert come on our show to help us kind of make sense of all of the information, all of the noise that's out there. And so I've asked Andrew Babula, he's the real estate program director here at St. Thomas University. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Great, good to be here.
This was a big announcement, something that really changed the real estate industry. If we could maybe get our viewers kind of up to speed about what exactly happened.
Sure. It was a big announcement. Whether it will dramatically change the real estate industry, I think is still to be seen. But what has happened is there was a large lawsuit out of the state of Missouri. Sellers were filed a class action lawsuit against the National Association of Realtors and several large real estate brokerage firms, essentially claiming that there was effectively collusion that was happening. And as a result, they won the lawsuit back in the fall. And then since then, the National Association of Realtors and some of the brokerage firms have settled, agreed on a settlement in March. And what they've agreed to is a $418 million payment and some changes to how some of the practices that realtors and the National Association of Realtors will do.
And there are a lot of little changes that were in this settlement, but what are some of the big ones that would actually have an impact on consumers?
Right. So there are two major changes that are part of the settlement. The first is that historically, the National Association of Realtors was requiring that brokers would put their commissions that they were offering to a buyer's agent on the MLS, the multiple listing service. So that is no longer allowed. The second major change is that there's a requirement that buyers and the buyer's agent must sign an agreement at the beginning of their partnership, of their relationship, stipulating what the commission will be paid to the buyer's agent.
And with the listing of the commission, the argument that was made was that it was kind of inflating the commissions a little bit, and also that there were certain agents working for the buyers that they wouldn't show people certain homes if they didn't reach a certain commission, and that was what some of these sellers were arguing, right?
Right. I mean, strangely, it actually provides more transparency, which typically is a good thing in a market, that you see what people are paying, what people are buying. But in some ways, this acts as a signal that if somebody wasn't offering what is often considered the standard industry commission of 3%, that buyers agents maybe wouldn't be showing those homes. In some cases that would happen. A good agent shouldn't be doing that. But for the most part, the thought was that then that effectively is forcing everybody to then require a 3% commission to a buyer's agent.
And with the second part, with the contract, it's kind of trying to make it so that the buyer and the agent, everyone is kind of understand what the relationship is going to be, what kind of services they're going to provide, what the commission is going to be, so there's no surprises at the end.
Exactly. And that's actually a very good thing. And I should note, in the state of Minnesota, we've been doing that all along. That's a requirement in the state of Minnesota. And what happens is then the buyers and the sellers, as you state, or excuse me, the seller, the buyer and the buyer's agent will know upfront what the commissions are going to be. And if for some reason a seller isn't willing to pay that commission or is going to pay less, then the conversation between the buyer and the buyer's agent needs to happen, where they need to understand, is the buyer going to make that up? Is the buyer's agent going to take a smaller commission? But again, it makes it more of a transparent conversation. So ultimately, that's a good thing. But in the state of Minnesota, we've already been doing that, so we won't see much change in that regard.
And in other states also do that as well. There's some that do, some that don't. So, in your area, kind of check and see what the differences are going to be. One thing I have read a lot about online is people theorizing that this is going to just blow up the entire way that we handle commissions and the way that realtors are paid. Some people even saying that this could just eliminate buying agents altogether, because a lot of these commissions were paid by the seller, because they get this big chunk of money from selling their house, and then it's customary in many cases for them to kind of just cover the agent fees for the buyer. And people are saying that's kind of out the window now. What are your thoughts on that? Are we going to see that drastic of a change?
No, I don't see that at all. You're right. We're seeing a lot of headlines that say that the 6% commission is gone forever, that half the agents are going to quit, that home prices are going to plummet. That's not going to be the case. As I said, the contracts in many cases are already out there. Commissions have always been negotiable. That still is allowed. You still are allowed to have the seller pay the seller's agent, which then gets passed through to the buyer. You're allowed to negotiate. The seller can negotiate, the buyer can negotiate, the agents can negotiate. So ultimately, it still is up to the market how things will fall. You may see some sellers pushing back and saying, I'm not paying that commission. And then it's up to the buyer to decide if they want to buy that property and pay the commission to their buyer's agent directly, which could create some problems for buyer's agents, because now not only do they need to come up with a down payment, closing costs, but they also need to come up with some fees to pay their agent. You could see some buyers, as a result of more transparency, pushing back, negotiating, foregoing some of those fees. But by and large, I don't see a lot of that happening. I actually see that sellers will still see the benefit of offering to pay, or whether directly or as part of the negotiation, to pay the buyer's agent, and things won't dramatically change, at least not based on this lawsuit and this settlement.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking, like, you got to think in the buyer's perspective. Like, if you're a first-time buyer, having to pay an extra 3% on top of, I mean, you probably spent years saving up for that down payment, and then you got to pay another 3% on a $300,000 home. I mean, doing the math, that's several $1,000s extra on top of it. That could mean an extra year or two of saving for some people.
Exactly. So then what can a buyer do? They can go to the seller and say, I'll pay you more for your home, assuming that it appraises at that level, but then buyer, will you pay the commission to my buyer's agent, and that'll revert back to the way things have been. You could also see that buyers say, I don't want to have a buyer's agent that does as much for me, and instead of paying the full, call it a $12,000 commission, maybe they only want to pay $6,000 or $2,000, and they'll negotiate for less service. That's possible. But I think in many ways that'll create more transparency, so people understand what it is that a buyer does, or what a buyer's agent does and what a buyer's agent doesn't. But I would also caution people to be careful about discounting what a buyer's agent does for them. I've heard a lot of comments, conversations about how a buyer's agent pretty much unlocks the door and shows them where the kitchen is. And that's a very minimal part of what a buyer's agent will do. A buyer's agent, if they're good, they're going to be able to navigate the process, help them put in the best offer that's the most competitive, that helps them to save the most money. They're going to be able to point out the fact that a home, if it doesn't have gutters on it, that there might be concerns about a leaky basement, or that they need to scope the main drain so that they don't have a $10,000 fix in the future. So people who forego having a buyer's agent may find them paying more in the long run if they don't know what they're doing. There's a lot of value in avoiding bad things from happening, and I think a lot of times people don't recognize that until it's too late.
Yeah, that's one thing I was wondering is, do you think a lot of people are going to see this and just go at it on their own? And what you already mentioned some of the issues there, but again, that's something they really have to think about before they go that route.
Right. And I wouldn't recommend that people go on their own unless they've done this before. They're comfortable with it. They've done it not even just once before, but multiple times. Maybe have a relationship with an attorney or others who are in the industry who can help navigate that. But otherwise, it's a big, expensive purchase. It's risky. There's a lot of unknowns, and even if you've gone through it once or twice before, you may not have experienced the same thing. So yes, some people may go it on their own, but I would caution them to be careful about that.
Yeah, when I interviewed some realtors about this, they're, obviously concerned. They're wanting to keep track on this, but a lot of them are kind of the mind that, it's kind of how markets work, that if something changes, eventually people are going to need to get paid for their service. It may be a different method or a different way to get paid, but they're like, eventually realtors are going to get paid for their services. It's just the dynamic or the format is going to change, and that maybe is just what we end up seeing.
Right. And I think that, as you say, with any market, the price or the commission in this case that is paid depends on what a buyer is willing to pay and what an agent is willing to accept. So The buyers can attempt to negotiate down the commission, but it's up to an agent to agree to that commission. And you may find that an agent who is willing to accept a lower commission, maybe they're doing less work, but they also may be in a case where they're less experienced, and so they're willing to agree to a 1% or a 2% commission. And so you want to be careful in that way as well, because just like you may not want to go on your own, you want an experienced, knowledgeable agent who's helping you navigate this process. And I think that's where a lot of times people feel burned in a sense, or feel they're overpaying an agent if they don't have an experienced real estate agent who is helping them in that process, and they don't feel that they got the value. But by and large, most individuals, I believe, who have had a good experience feel that it's well worth their money, even if they're not directly paying it.
So summing everything up, what would be, I guess, your advice for buyers and sellers, each one separately, when these changes do go into effect later this summer?
So I should be clear, so it's not official. A judge still does need to rule on the settlement and approve it, and then it would go into effect in July. Like I said, I don't think buyers and sellers are really going to see much of a change at all, especially in Minnesota, where we already have some of this in place. My advice is, if you're looking to sell your home or you're looking to buy a home, don't worry about this settlement, because it's not going to have a big impact on you. It's not necessarily going to lower home prices or lower commissions, certainly not right away, possibly over time, but I don't think it's going to be a material difference. So if you're at a position where it makes sense for you, focus more on your payments, what you can afford, what's right for you in the time in your life, and then find a good agent to help you navigate that process.
And feel more empowered to negotiate. The big takeaway is that that's always been available out there. This is just kind of putting that more front and center for people to know.
Exactly, and that's a good thing, because that creates transparency.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the show and walking us through all of this.
Happy to be here. Thank you.
Welcome back. Right now, a lot of home buyers are waiting for those interest rates to go down. They are expected to come down later this year, but experts say not by as much as you might think, maybe 1%, if that. And realtors say waiting for a lower rate may end up costing home buyers more money in the long run.
The Fed reduction in rates, while it doesn't have a one-for-one impact on what happens in the mortgage industry, it's a little bit tied to it. So yes, if the Fed does take it down 1%, or even if they take it down 2%, now we're back down between that 5 and 6% range, or maybe high 4s, and what'll end up happening there is you'll see a mad dash of buyers getting back into the market, pushing those prices up. So ultimately, the impact of those lower interest rates will push the prices up, which will have almost a negligible impact on what somebody's going to pay on a monthly basis. Yes, they get a lower interest rate, but their house payment is going to be the same because the price of the house that they want to buy has gone up. People are just going to have to kind of get a little bit comfortable with where we are if they want to be homeowners. Prices aren't coming down. Rates might come down here by the end of the year, but really buyers and sellers should probably get used to an interest rate range between 5 and 7. I don't think we're going to see anything below 5 in the coming future.
Every realtor I have spoken with agrees if and when those interest rates do go down, we're going to see a lot more buyers flooding into the market. And with more competition, we could see higher prices on home. So it may not be a good idea to wait. A home is a unique investment. You want to get a good deal, but it's also where you live, and it has a big impact on your family's quality of life. So think about more than just the money. With everything I have shared today, it may seem like it's nearly impossible for a first-time home buyer to find a home they can afford. Well, the city of Jacksonville is trying to change that with a new program to help first-time buyers save for a down payment. Rich Donnelly explains how it works.
This is going to be transformational for our neighbors who are pursuing the American dream of home ownership.
It was in front of this new home for sale on a quiet East Side street that the city's down payment assistance home ownership program was announced. In order to qualify for this program, you must be a first-time home buyer in Jacksonville who wants to buy a home valued at $335,000 or less. The program will provide up to 75% of down payment or closing costs, up to $25,000 to individuals or families earning 120% of the area median income. Prospective homebuyers can combine this program with other programs and grants. City Councilwoman Jacoby Pittman grew up in Jacksonville and plans to tell renters in her district about this opportunity.
It empowers individuals who live in communities like this to say, you know what, I can do it. I don't have to continue to stay in apartments.
Multiple families rent their homes down the street from the press conference. Celia Baez says down payment assistance would be a huge boost to home ownership.
It will be very beneficial to us because it's a lot of money that sometimes it's hard to get. Sometimes work is down. Sometimes we don't have financially the money in our hand to give it.
The city was quick to say that this is a pilot program, but Mayor Deegan said this program could grow in the future.
Already we know it's a big need. So when you say, can it move the dial? I think the dial starts with one turn, right? You're not going to solve all the problems overnight.
And Jacksonville isn't the only city doing this. Several others across the country have resources available for first-time homebuyers. If you're interested, check to see what programs are available in your community. Well, if you are buying or selling a home this year, hang in there. It can be a stressful process on both ends. I've been on both sides myself, and I know it can all seem overwhelming at times. But hang in there, and don't be afraid to ask your friends, family, and the experts for help. Until next time, I'm Gordon Severson, helping you save, spend, and invest your money wisely. I'll see you next time.